Take your phone out right now. You probably have a Maps app on it. You have used it to navigate roads you have driven 100 times. Some of you have used it to find a restaurant 3 streets away from your own home. Now here is the question that should genuinely unsettle you. If that phone died right now and you had to find your way home through unfamiliar land with no roads, no signs, no GPS, and no map, could you actually do it? Most people honestly could not. And yet your ancestors crossed entire continents. They moved from Africa into Europe, across Asia, and somehow found and settled tiny islands scattered across the largest ocean on Earth, all without a single map, without a compass, without any technology whatsoever. How? The answer reveals a form of human intelligence so powerful that modern science is only beginning to measure how completely we have lost it.
The human brain contains a structure called the hippocampus. One of its primary jobs is building and storing mental maps of every environment you move through. In 2014, neuroscientists John O'Keefe, May Britt Moser, and Edvard Moser won the Nobel Prize for discovering exactly how this works. They found specialized neurons called place cells and grid cells that fire in precise patterns as you move through space, creating a living internal coordinate system, a biological GPS running inside your brain at all times, whether you know it or not. Neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire at University College London studied the brains of London taxi drivers who had spent years memorizing thousands of streets without GPS. Their hippocampi were measurably larger than average. The brain had physically grown in response to constant navigation demands. Now imagine a human whose entire life involved navigating wild, constantly changing landscapes, whose survival depended on remembering where the water source was 3 days east, where the seasonal food was, where the danger was. Their spatial memory was not just functional, it was a living, constantly updating map of the entire known world stored entirely inside their skull.
But memory alone does not explain how they navigated completely unknown territory. For that, they learned to read the world itself. The sun moves in a predictable arc every day. Stars rotate around fixed points every night. Rivers always flow toward lower ground. Wind patterns in most landscapes are consistent and directional. Mosses grow differently on north-facing and south-facing surfaces. Animals move along predictable routes between water and food. To an ancient human, trained since childhood to observe these signals, the landscape was not empty wilderness. It was a text, dense with directional information, readable in every direction at every hour of the day and night. Anthropologist Louis Liebenberg spent years documenting sand bushman hunters in the Kalahari. What he found was extraordinary. These hunters could determine an animal's direction, speed, physical condition, and even emotional state from marks on the ground most modern people would not notice at all. They could predict where the animal was heading based on terrain features kilometers ahead they had never visited. Liebenberg called this predictive tracking, and he argued it was one of the most cognitively demanding forms of intelligence ancient humans ever developed.
Of all ancient human navigation achievements, one stands so far above the rest that scientists spent decades refusing to believe it was intentional: the settlement of the Pacific Islands. Between 3,000 and 1,000 years ago, ancient Polynesian navigators crossed the largest ocean on Earth and found tiny islands scattered across 25 million square kilometers of open water: Hawaii, Easter Island, New Zealand, in outrigger canoes with no instruments, no compass, no charts. They memorized the rising and setting positions of hundreds of stars across all seasons. They read ocean swell patterns by lying in the hull of the canoe and feeling directional wave energy pass through the wood. They tracked bird flight paths that only flew at specific distances from land. They read cloud formations above islands not yet visible on the horizon. Navigator David Lewis, who spent years learning this system from its last living masters, called it a complete alternative science of the natural world. Not guesswork, not luck, a fully developed knowledge system that took generations to build and years of dedicated study to master.
In 2020, a study published in Nature Communications tested the navigation ability of 442,000 people across 38 countries. The results were stark. People in countries with higher GPS reliance performed significantly worse on every spatial navigation test. Heavy GPS use was actively preventing the hippocampus from developing the navigational capacity it was built to have. Every time you open Google Maps to navigate somewhere you have been before, you are choosing not to use a biological system that took millions of years to evolve. Ancient humans did not survive without maps. They carried maps so detailed and so deeply embedded in their minds that no screen has ever matched them. They crossed continents by reading the sky. They found invisible islands by feeling the ocean through wood. The navigation system that took your ancestors everywhere on Earth is still inside your skull right now. You just forgot you had it. Drop a comment below. Could you navigate home right now without your phone? Be honest. The answers are always interesting. Next week on Primal Tales, how did ancient humans communicate before language was fully formed? Subscribe so you do not miss it.